Welcome to Austin Stories Malicious Compliance, where OP gets their boss fired and makes them almost throw up from what they have to do, and more. Also available on the Austin Stories podcast, link in the description. Let's get started. You want me to stay in my lane? You got it, boss. Posted by Original Tank 5357. Some time ago, I used to work in a medical specialty office. It was ID, or infectious disease, as a medical assistant. Sidebar, I used to work in the food industry and was always told that I wouldn't ever contribute to society or do anything meaningful with my life. While I absolutely loved working as a chef and a baker at the time, I wanted to do more with my life, and I wanted to prove to myself that I'm not as useless as people made me out to be. Not that I believe that for 1 second, but in my culture, if you aren't a businessman or a doctor, you're lower than everyone else. It's pretty terrible, but that's how the culture is. I now live in the US, and it's been pretty good. Back to the story. I had graduated top 3 in my class and was certified through the AAMA and scored in the 90th percentile, so I knew my stuff. But I've never worked a white-collar job in my life, so I was afraid that I would seem, out of place. I did my externship at this ID clinic in my town, and they loved my interpersonal skills. They loved my work and stated that I would be offered a job at the end of my externship. I was elated. I was just so happy to have a job secured and to have a foot in the door to the medical field. It turns out my blue-collar experience had helped me relate with a lot of our patients, and they appreciated my work more for it. As my time went on, my experience working in the medical field became less about the money and more about the people that I can help with my direct patient care. They weren't just charts, MRNs, medical record number for those non-medical folk, and diagnoses. They were Jeff, who ran the local farmers market, or Meg, who worked with kids at the Y. I cared for my patients, and our repeats would always look forward to coming back to see me and have a chat. I loved working with my patients. So at the end of my externship, I was extended an offer of employment for a decent amount of money. It was more than my other classmates were offered at their practices, but still not a whole lot. And I took it. I was to be the medical assistant in charge of direct patient care. This meant checking in, rooming, dealing with prescriptions, performing and searching for labs, packing wounds, and doing dressing changes. Being officially part of the office now, I was determined to work my butt off and show myself and my colleagues that I could do it. I continued to do my work and care for patients. However, over time, I would notice certain things that weren't in my job duties that I could do that would help care for the patients. Certain things like calling their doctors for updated orders or checking for records from local hospitals. Also, helping patients find good home health or SNFs, which are skilled nursing facilities. It's generally, though, the medical scheduler's job. This also included looking into insurance coverage or billing and checking referral statuses for referral coordinators, among other things. Doing these tasks meant a bit more work on my end, but it also meant the best care that I could offer for my patients. This went on for a year, and my patients were happy and willing to come to appointments. Apparently, not a whole lot of people like to come to a building that has the words infectious diseases in big print on its side. Then one day, out of the blue, I'm called into my supervisor. Young, naive me thought, oh great, they finally see how hard I'm working and I'm finally getting recognized. Maybe they'll promote me to lead. Nope. My boss, Shelly, told me that I'm working too hard and sticking my fingers into too many pots. I asked where this was coming from, and she stated that I was staying more than 5 minutes late too many times, and it's because I'm doing too much work. She said, "We can't keep paying you all this overtime." I think I was maybe making 30 minutes of OT at most. She said that's still too much. I'm doing too much work. I was baffled, absolutely stunned. I thought I was doing the practice of service, but she undermined the entirety of the last year's hard work that I put in. I was frustrated and I was a bit upset, but I tried my best to remain professional. So I asked her what she would like me to do, and the next words out of her mouth were ones that she would come to regret. Well, I see you're doing a lot of tasks that are meant for other positions. Maybe you should stop doing those and just Stay in your lane. She then proceeded to write me up for trying to abuse the time clock. Insert a Jim Carrey, alrighty then, and cue malicious compliance. I asked her to send me a list of exactly what my job duties are, which she was happy to do. It listed most of what I originally was meant to do, except it didn't include dressing changes and packing wounds. I saw this and immediately knew this would be trouble for my boss. You see, she was the only other medical assistant on our end of the office that was certified to deal with minor wound care and dressings. At that point, since I was the main contact for patients, that would fall onto her plate. So I told each of my patients that I won't be doing any of that extra work because it goes against the practice's wishes, and I was told not to. All of them understood, but it's tough to get patients to keep appointments when things are delayed. Not long after the order was issued, I got my first page for a wound pack. Excellent. One thing to note about my boss is that she absolutely abhors feet. And one thing to note about infectious disease clinics is that we dealt with a lot of diabetic foot infections, at least 2 or 3 a day. Doc wants to see how it's healing, so he removes the wrap and unpacks the foot. Spent a little extra time with the patient and now has to get to his next appointment. I'm paged by the doc to pack the foot, wet to dry. No problem, doc, let me get Shelly for you. He then gives me a kind of odd look, but continues to his next appointment. Shelly gloves up, and as soon as she passes the threshold of the room and notices it's a diabetic foot, she's holding back her gags and immediately sweating. I pass by the room, and she asks for my help. As calmly as I could, I turned and said, sorry, boss, packing wounds isn't on my list. I can't do it, just staying in my lane. By the way, the 2 o'clock in 3 is a through and through foot infection. Probably should get that packed soon too. I'm glad we were wearing masks because she couldn't see the massive crap-eating grin that I had on my face throughout that whole encounter. She tried to write me up about disobeying superiors, but I'd spoken with my GM and she was behind me. Instead, she ended up getting written up for trying to put wound packs back on my list after she told me I did too much work. She ended up having to do part of the medical scheduler's job, part of the referral coordinator's job, and part of the billing office's job as she let go one of our front desk staff because there was not enough work to go around. There was plenty of work. I was doing it. She didn't last long after that. The burnout got to her and she stepped down from her supervisor position 4 months after that. They ended up hiring another super and I left the practice shortly after that I got the vid. They told me to come back into work after 3 days and still very symptomatic. So I told them I wouldn't endanger my patients like that and to shove it. Last I heard, they have an entirely new front office staff and they're perpetually short-handed. Shoulda let me drive my own path instead of staying in your silly lanes. This is beautiful because OP was above and beyond, like the best employee you could ever ask for. Going just over the moon for these patients that they legitimately care about. They are the kind of doctor that loves their patients and just doesn't do it for the paycheck. And you can't say that about all. I mean, don't you wish, like, I don't know if you have a doctor like that, that is great. But if you don't you wish yours was? And then they get punished for it. And not only punished, the boss who lays down, drop this hammer, is actually completely backfired because they hate feet, and then they just get shoved in to the worst possible foot situation you can. Diabetic foot infections are terrible, and I feel horrible for people that are in that. They need someone who cares about their situation to help them out, and then Shelly is the one they get stuck with. What a shame. But you know what, OP? Even they told you to come back 3 days after you got the vid, you didn't. Just that is what makes sense. That's what you should do. And yet they still wanted you to do it. You came out on top. You knew what you were doing, delivering that revenge pro-nuclear MC, and you have won. OP, congratulations on that win. Stop bothering us with that deadline. We've got this. Sure thing, kids. Posted by Rare Cheesecake 9701. Some background. I, 27 female, work in IT. I'm a well-respected and known member of the IT party circle where I live, so to speak. I am not jaw-dropping, but people know me and I have a very good reputation. One of the things is that I got to the point in my career when I wanted to give back, so I started mentoring others. Mostly, I mentored adults or those who were closer to me in age. Career advice, how to apply for different exchange programs that can boost their professional growth and improve their speaking and writing skills. The usual. But I always was one up for the challenge, and I decided to try and mentor kids. It's not a secret that IT and STEM are increasingly popular right now, and more people want to get into the field. Therefore, there are myriads of boot camps, hackathons, and mentoring programs for all ages. So, I signed up for one such program as a mentor. Teach kids how to code with blocks, tell them what AI is, and how to develop an MVP. It sounds more complicated than it might look at first glance, especially when you're an educated professional with a degree, explaining concepts that are rather complicated to children who may have less than 1/50th of your tech knowledge. I must add that participation in the said program gives kids credits and can help them get into better schools or even be eligible for some university scholarships later in life. So only pros, if you ask me. The only thing is that they must upload their MVP project to the site before the deadline. I was assigned 2 teams. Primary, which is early middle schoolers, Team A, and high schoolers, which is Team B. Both had 5 members, and the youngest in Team A was 8 years old. I thought, oh my goodness, that will be tough, thinking about Team A and how I am up for a tough time. Also, since they are so young, the parents of the kids must observe Team A meetings and my lessons, and parents equals problems. Ironically, despite my worries, even with help from the parents, the kids in Team A were doing great. But the same can't be said about Team B. A little side note, with my mentees, I have 2 rules. 1, at least 1 meeting per week. At least 50% of the group must be present. 2, communication. When I type something, like task to do or reply to a question asked before, I ask my mentees to respond. Not even text, a thumbs up emoji will also suffice. We all know that red status doesn't mean much when you can accidentally open an app for a second or swipe it to clear RAM on the phone. So, Team A attended all the meetings and responded to my assignments. There was a curriculum provided by a program to follow, and they were very receptive overall. Team B started okay, but then started not showing on meetings and leaving assignments read but unresponded. I understand they have a lot on their plate, exams are no joke, but they disregarded my time, which I will not be okay with. I have a job to do, and mentoring in that program was 100% volunteering, and there was no payment for the mentors. There was, however, a very strict deadline. The middle of April, when their MVPs must be loaded onto the website for later judgment. I, even when ticked, am a professional first and an angry lady second. So I wrote multiple messages asking for updates on the project, with warnings at the end that, deadline is April 15th, don't miss it. After one such message, the so-called leader of Team B, Sam, wrote to me this. Hi OP, I know that you probably mean well, but you only bother the team with those deadline messages. Can't you, chill out? When we need you, we'll contact you and all. Just get off our hair and, let us do our job. I'm sorry if this hurts your feelings. It is what it is, heart. After I read that message, I was like, what the heck? But I did respond that I would stop messaging if that caused tension within the team. Though the deadline is still on the 15th and the site would reject any application that was uploaded after. Just stop, okay? Jeez, said Sam to that, so I decided, okay, I'm washing my hands out of this. Cue malicious compliance. Since that message, I haven't written anything to Team B. I had scheduled no meetings, updates, or checkups about the curriculum and their understanding, and definitely not a written reminder of the deadline once. Deadline came. Team A uploaded their project with no issues, and their parents even bought me a nice box of chocolate as a thank you gesture. Just like the deadline came and went, Team B started bombarding chat, asking me to help because something is wrong with the site. We can't upload our project. I entered the chat and said, yes, it will not upload. No, it's not an issue with the site. The deadline has passed, so if you try to upload, it will only show you an error message. I warned you, kids. No extra credits, no nothing. The rules of that program are simple, but they are hard, no exceptions ones. Team B tried to blame me, saying that as a mentor, it was my job to ensure that they would succeed. And I reminded them that my job as a mentor is to provide support and guidance, keep track of their progress, and to remind them of the deadline, which, all of the above, they, via Sam, asked me not to. And since I respected their boundaries, I did exactly what they had requested. They can sulk as much as they want. I have all our communication in writing, so they don't have a leg to stand on when trying to accuse me of sabotaging them and their program. Tough luck, kids. You know, I was just talking to somebody about this just the other day, and we were talking about how as you go into your teenage years, high school, you begin to think, I know everything, I got this all under control. And as you get older, if you're not there yet, please listen to these words. You realize how little you do actually know. And unfortunately for Team B in the high school age, this was a hard, tough learning experience for them. And I'm not bashing anybody on high school. I was there it's been several years ago now, but it's one of those things. It's like, it's a life experience. You get this, it's hard, it sucks, but you got to learn from it. And now, hopefully Team B looking back will be like, hey, this lady, she was just trying to teach us a lesson on malicious compliance and what we can do to keep ourselves straight and in check. OP, I don't know if you realize it, but you just gave them a tough love life lesson. Way to go. Fire me if I don't take your terrible pay cut. Okay then. Click the video on your screen so you don't miss this awesome story, and I'll see you there.